youth group of Our Lady of Good Counsel from Morristown, New Jersey, connecting faith and life. And you're watching Real Faith TV.
You can't always say whatever you want because sometimes what you say can harm other people.
No, I do not believe that the law can support that people can say whatever they want, whenever they want, because certain threats of terrorism can cause people harm, and I do not believe that that is under the First Amendment.
People have to have a filter, and we can't always say what we want to say. We have to think about other people and like the people surrounding us when we're talking, and how they might interpret the situation, how they might interpret our words.
There's ways you can use freedom of speech to live according to the Catholic faith by only building people up by saying kind words to others. That's living according to the way God wants you to help others.
I think of prayer, so every time I pray, I'm using that freedom of speech.
I can think of a time when I was offended by the free speech of someone else. My fellow students, after terrorist attacks, were bashing on the Islamic religion, and I scolded them because we're all children of God and we should really respect the religion and beliefs of others, because God tells us to love everyone, and that's part of our Catholic faith and part of our duties as Christians.
For many of us, the freedom of speech granted to us in the United States Constitution is part of our lives and a right that we may take for granted.
It allows us to express ourselves without the fear of censorship or reprimand.
It allows us to be creative in the ways we communicate our thoughts, feelings, and perspectives.
People from other countries around the world yearn for the rights we Americans have.
And sometimes we don't fully appreciate the gift of our freedom.
Our freedom of speech isn't always used in an appropriate manner.
It can be used to insult or hurt people and their ideas and beliefs.
But other times, it can be used to build up people's dignity and share about our God.
We are blessed in the United States to have the freedom of speech.
But this right wasn't invented or given to us by our government.
It's actually a God-given right.
Freedom of speech. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi, everyone. I'm Tom.
And I'm Carolee. And this is Real Faith TV. We'd like to thank Our Lady of Good Counsel Youth Group from Morristown, New Jersey for helping us open the show today.
And for sharing their views on the First Amendment and some of the things you can and can't say.
And I think it was really cool how the kids on the street mentioned that we do have the right to say things, but it's also important to remember when we should say them and when we shouldn't say them.
Yeah, there's a time and place for everything, so let's see what our studio guests have to say.
Okay, they are Mike,
Greta,
Kelly,
Michael,
Cassandra,
Lauren,
and Joe. So how do you define freedom of speech?
Well, freedom of speech, I think the Declaration of Independence and how it says everyone's given three God-granted rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think freedom of speech falls under the category of liberty.
Being able to say what you want when you want, right?
I think it's also important to remember too, though, that it's being able to say what you want when you want, but also not yelling fire in a crowded room or there's a bomb at an airport, it's important to have a filter. Yeah.
I think that freedom of speech touches more on sort of your opinion on something. You have the freedom to like ice cream or not like ice cream, and you're allowed to say why you don't do or don't,
Yeah, it's a freedom of finding a way to express yourself. I'm not going to bash on him because he's wearing plaid. It's that kind of freedom.
Now, let's meet our spotlight guest, Samantha, a recent high school graduate who has become known as the Pledge Girl.
She received this recognition because she testified in court to defend the right to keep the word God in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Did she win?
She sure did.
All right, let's meet Samantha now and find out how she defines freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech means you have the freedom to say something or not to say something. I do believe young people today take freedom of speech for granted, and I regret to say that I sometimes do as well. Sometimes the way I talk to my parents or my siblings. Bullying is a huge example of someone abusing their freedom of speech. They're using it to tear someone else down rather than build them up. I have the freedom of speech to say what I want, but I don't have the freedom to speak to anybody like they're nothing, they're worth nothing, because everybody's worth something.
Can you think of a time when you were offended by somebody else's right to freedom of speech?
Yeah, a time for me was when we were watching the movie American Sniper in my history class, and that's like a pretty controversial movie as it is, but this girl like freaked out and she was like, I hate this movie, like I hate what our troops are doing in other countries, it's just not right, our troops are a disgrace to this country. And I completely flipped out at her and I lost my cool completely. And I mean, but the thing is, she has the freedom to say that. I mean, and as ignorant and as wrong as I think it is, I mean, she still has the freedom of speech to express an opinion like that.
Well, I know for me, one time when I was driving and I was taking a little bit too long at a stoplight, you know, guy behind me, he's impatient. We're driving in Jersey, so you got to get going before that light turns green. And, you know, he leans out the window and he says some not so nice things. And, you know, I feel like, you know, you don't have to say that. You can, you know, keep it to yourself.
I think, too, a big thing is that on social media, people don't really consider somebody else tweeting their freedom of speech, or they don't look at it the same way as you would say it in person, but it is. It's just as offensive if somebody were to say it to your face or over the computer or whatever it happens to be. So I think it's hard to keep in mind that whatever you're tweeting out or Instagramming, everyone sees that, and it's important to realize what you're posting and to see if it's going to offend anybody else and try to take that into consideration.
Even when we type something into our phone, like through a text or a tweet, we still need to remember that it still is speech. We're still saying it, so it doesn't make a difference whether you're saying it or you're typing it. Thinking about what we say and how we say it is important.
Because even though we have the freedom of speech to say what we want, we still have to be responsible and respectful.
Words are like toothpaste.
Wait, what? Oh, right, because once it comes out of the tube, it's hard to get it back inside.
So it's best to always think before you speak.
The pursuit of truth is the reason we have freedom of speech built into our law system.
It should allow everyone to share their faith without fear of attack from the government or from others.
It should allow people with different or even opposing viewpoints or faith backgrounds to share their perspectives freely.
Why the emphasis on should? Well, recently there have been many attacks on religious freedom in the United States.
The correct use of freedom of speech should allow someone to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school.
Using the phrase, one nation under God, while giving the people the freedom to leave it out or to not say the pledge at all.
Yet this phrase, one nation under God, was being challenged by the American Humanist Association.
They took the Matawan Aberdeen School District to court to have the phrase removed.
Our spotlight guest Samantha stepped up to testify in favor of keeping the words, one nation under God, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's go back to Samantha now and hear a little bit about that experience.
I was recently in the press for my freedom of speech and standing up for that. There was a case going on, and an atheist family in North Jersey wanted to take under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance. I feel strongly about one nation under God being in the Pledge of Allegiance because I have been reciting the pledge in its entirety for all my life in school. And I do truly believe that one nation under God sums up the history and the values that make America the land of the free. Knowing that there is a God that is bigger than all of this is comforting. When the court delivered the verdict and it was in our favor, I was just overjoyed. It was amazing to be able to see who was supporting us. It wasn't just my family and friends, but it was the courts and the judge as well. Defending this right will never end for me. In a legal sense, it does, it has. But my whole life, I will be defending this right.
Would you be willing to defend your freedom of speech? And do you think it would be hard?
Yes, I am willing to defend my freedom of speech, but yeah, I feel like it would be hard just because other people are so mean sometimes. To be simple, they're mean and criticizable. So, like, expressing my freedom of speech and expressing my religion, I feel like is important to have.
I think I would also be able to defend my freedom of speech, but I think it would be hard, and I think I would get scared at times just seeing the violence that other people get in return for standing up. But I think that's the prize that comes with it, is being able to conquer that fear and show everyone what you believe in.
I really think that quote, "Those who stand for nothing fall for anything," like really plays in here, because if you can't even like stand by your belief system, and like if you can't stand for your values, then like what are you really standing for? Like nothing. So I think it's really important that you always protect your belief system, no matter how hard it may seem at times.
Yes, I would also be willing to defend my right for the freedom of speech, but I find it would be difficult as other people may have different opinions and they could make the same argument using their freedom of speech against me.
Well, as far as it being difficult, I actually got to interview Samantha, and she told me that she really only got positive feedback. Her friends and her family were very supportive of her, and she really didn't hear anything too negative. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure that it'll be difficult, but also don't forget you'll get a lot of support.
I've had a different experience. I was in discussion and debate last year, so obviously people are challenging your beliefs, and whatever it happens, just that you want to speak up or speak out against. And I was the one person in the entire class that disagreed with what was going on, or the only one who was willing to speak up. So I think it's hard, definitely, to be the one standing and disagreeing with the crowd. It's a really difficult subject to talk about, no matter what it is, if you're standing alone. And I think that's important to remember too.
Yeah, I feel like it's really hard because, you know, we have the right to say whatever we want, but that doesn't mean that we won't get in trouble for it, whether it's a work or school environment. So I think that in some ways we're forced to be like sensitive and like not to express like what we feel.
I definitely have to agree with that, for sure.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like Christian voices are being afraid to like express their freedom of speech in fear of offending another religion, so they just don't say anything at all.
Mike, did you say that Samantha did not get any negative feedback at all, or?
Well, she didn't get any negative feedback in person. She said any feedback that she got that was negative was only through Facebook, you know, sort of indirect.
St. John Paul II said, "The right to develop one's intelligence and freedom in seeking and knowing the truth should be protected by governments."
He explained that religious freedom is understood as the right to live in the truth of one's faith and in conformity with one's transcendent dignity as a person.
Our respect for the opinions and belief system of others and their right to speak about them flows from each person's dignity and ability to pursue truth.
For Samantha, her testimony helped to win the case in court and keep the phrase "under God" as part of the pledge recited in schools.
Now students have the option to remain silent during that phrase.
This protects freedom of speech and religious freedom.
No one is pressured to say it or is silenced from saying it. Respect is given to both sides.
Samantha's defense of freedom of speech and religion is a model example of the correct usage of speech.
For her, saying the Pledge of Allegiance sums up the values that make our country great.
Next, she'll share with us the kind of feedback, both negative and positive, she received while she was taking her stand.
I got a lot of feedback on this case. I got mostly positive feedback. My friends, my family, my teachers in school asked about it. They were supporting me and encouraging me the entire way. I did get negativity when my dad and I created the Pledge Girl page on Facebook. People would just post things. They decided to basically bash my dad and I. And that was kind of hard to read because they don't even know me. But the positivity and the positive remarks I got and the support and encouragement completely overrode everything that other people were saying that didn't know me. People sometimes feel that they need to say whatever is in their mind. Words change things, whether you realize it or not, either for positive or negative. Words change a lot of things.
So how do you edit your speech?
And do you speak the same way to everyone in your life, and why or why not?
I do. I just treat everybody the same way, and like whether it's priests, cops, teachers, my fellow students, like I'm myself around everybody, and it usually ends up in a friendship, so it works for me.
I agree with you. I think we need to act ourselves around everyone, because I know people who act one way in front of their parents, they act like angels and then act a different way with their friends. But you do need to take into consideration that people do have different beliefs, so you need to voice your opinion without hurting anyone else's feelings.
I feel the same way. I am my genuine self to everyone, but like if I were talking to one of my religious friends who like share the same belief within, I can go into more in-depth conversations, and like I'm not afraid to judge, to be judged because we share the same religious belief. But if I were to talk to my non-religious friend, I will try to rearrange my words a little bit differently so I won't judge them, or I won't be too offensive to them.
Yeah, I mean, like, unlike Greta and Cassandra, like, I feel like I do talk, like, totally different to other people, because even though I go to a Catholic school, like, there's people that have different, like, political and even, like, religious views than me. So, you know, I feel like it can affect my grade if I, like, speak out and, like, express my opinion, so.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, when I talk to my friends, I'll be a little bit more loose in what I say, and, you know, I'll express how I feel or what I think a bit more freely. But if I'm talking to my parents or to my teachers or to someone who's, you know, in a superior position to me, I'll usually, I'll, you know, sort of clean up my act a little bit. My parents are going to see this. But, you know, I'll give them the respect that they deserve.
I think that I personally treat everybody that I speak with or anybody that I come in contact with, whether it's my friends, my teachers, my peers, or even somebody that I don't really know that well, that I treat them all with respect, like you were saying, Greta. And so I pretty much talk to everybody the same way. I don't edit myself for a certain crowd because my beliefs are my beliefs and I want to stick to them rather than trying to hide them in a certain way to try not to offend a certain crowd or a certain type of people.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important that you stick to your beliefs, but at the same time, you need to learn to respect other people's opinions. I had a debate with this girl once over abortion, or it was like some controversial topic, like abortion, I think. And like it was like one debate in my political science class, and like it was in that class, like we settled it and everything. But like whenever abortion appeared in the news again, she would always come up to me and start a debate again. And I think it's important not to always lash out at other people or rub your opinion on other people's faces. You need to learn to respect other people's opinions, you know?
Not only that, but it's important to keep in mind of their opinions and be able to think from both points of view rather than just stating your opinion and saying that you were right. You need to be able to try to see their point of view.
And yeah, Michael, like you were saying, like too many people see an opposing opinion and think, oh my gosh, that's completely wrong, you're wrong, I'm right. And it's okay to see an opposing opinion and think, wow, that's actually right, you know? Like, we need to be like intellectual and actually look at that other opinion, review it ourselves and think, wow, that's right, you know what, I think I agree with that one. Like, that's okay to sometimes change your opinion if that's what you believe.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance in between there, sort of. St. Paul encouraged the early Christian community at Ephesus to use their speech to build up the community.
In his letter to the Ephesians, Paul teaches us that
we need to watch what comes out of our mouths and that we should always try to be about building people up.
God's speech reflects God's truth and love. It builds unity.
Bad speech breaks people down and puts walls up between others.
As stated in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, our approach to speech should revolve around communicating known truth to others.
Finally, our spotlight guest, Samantha, talks to us about how her faith constantly guides her speech.
And how she reflects on Scripture when choosing what and when to speak.
My faith does guide what I say, when I say it, and how I say it. The scripture says that there is a time for everything. And it talks actually about there's a time to be silent and there's a time to speak. And just that itself, I think, explains how my faith guides me. I know I need to keep in mind that I'm not always meant to speak and I'm not always meant to be silent. For example, this case, I was meant to speak up. This was my time to speak up and stand up for what I believe in. A Bible verse that I do believe it inspires me is Proverbs 18:21. And it says that the tongue has the power of life or death. That inspires me to inspire other people to think before you speak. My mom always tells me to think before I speak. And it just shows the power behind your speech. You can either lift someone up or tear them down. I mean, in the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, God spoke life into this world. He spoke us into existence and the entire world into existence, and that itself shows the power of words and speech.
I think a lot of people are unwilling to hear God's truth, and that's why God put us on the earth. It's part of our reason that we're supposed to stand up for what we believe in and spread the truth of God. As hard as that may be to stand up for what you believe, but no matter what the circumstances are, there's a time to do that, and the time is now, you know?
So how can we use our freedom of speech to better live according to Catholic faith?
Well, like our spotlight guest, Samantha, we could use our freedom of speech to speak our beliefs about our faith.
Yeah, and like proclaim the good news, like a disciple kind of, like go out and like spread the truth.
I feel like sometimes people think that like they have less freedom of speech than other groups of people. And it's important to realize that freedom of speech is like equally shared by everyone. Everyone has the same amount of freedom of speech as everyone else. So don't be afraid to like voice your opinion or voice your faith, or don't feel like you'd be attacked if you did voice it.
I think that's something that the Catholic Church has lost. People who have the faith and the trust that they can speak about their faith and stand strong and say what they believe in and bring people to the Catholic Church.
What I think is important too is to use our freedom of speech in a good way for our Catholic faith. You know, we have to be careful about, say, the things that we wear, T-shirts or wristbands. We have to think, is that something that goes with our faith and goes with what we believe, or is that something that could be potentially abusing that right?
Yeah, we have to continually be positive to other people and like uplift them.
I feel like part of the idea behind faith is that you have to actually have the faith and have the guts to profess it and stand up and talk about it and spread it to others. And I'm not sure that everyone who says that they have faith in the Christian Roman Catholic Church are willing to do that. So I think that's part of it behind this.
Not only that, but through our actions, we should be preaching what we say through our freedom of speech. Our actions should stand as an example to others on what we speak, and we should be able to follow what we say.
This truth encouraged us to speak about our faith and share the gospel with others.
This must be done in a respectful, loving manner that appreciates the gift of free will given to each person by God.
Freedom of speech often connects with religious topics, yet as Catholics, we want our faith to speak loudly in every way we communicate.
In every conversation and encounter with others, we are called to be loving and respectful.
We are called to build up the body of Christ through our words and our actions.
We are called to be proud of our faith and to be unafraid to talk about Jesus Christ.
So how are you using your freedom of speech to bring others closer to Christ?
We'd love to hear from you.
Contact us at realfaithtv.com.
Or share your thoughts with us on Twitter.
And we'll leave you today with the words of Christian singer-songwriter Toby Mac from his song, Speak Life.
So speak life to the deadest, darkest night.
Speak life when the sun won't shine and you don't know why.
Look into the eyes of the brokenhearted. Watch them come alive as soon as you speak hope.
So use your freedom of speech to speak life and to honor our God.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on Real Faith TV. God bless.